Okay, finally back on the K series hatch project. Got one of the things I've been waiting on, which is the ARP head studs. Waiting like a month for these, and that's a whole nother story. I'm not gonna get into that. But anyway, got that done. Just finished up some axle seals on my daily. We'll make this will be a separate video. So check this out if you're interested. Also, I got our turbo coated, the exhaust housing ceramic coated for our K series hatch as well. Oh, there you go. That's another video that's already up, so check that out as well. Okay, this is part 2 of the head stud and timing set install. So the head I got resurfaced and I put the valve seals in. I recorded that and I'll add that in here right quick before we get into the actual engine. I'll show you that. But anyway, just clean everything real good. Got all the maintenance surfaces clean. I'm gonna put a head gasket on, the head studs in, head gasket on, and button the top end up. Then what we're gonna do is pull the pan so we can do our oil pump timing chain. We do a regular timing chain, this and that. I got a bunch of other goodies. I got a whole slew of parts from what been collecting for this thing. So anyway, I'm bad for just talking, so let's just get into it. Okay, so I don't do many K series heads, so I just bought a cheap, it's just a cheap valve spring compressor tool that I got off of eBay. It was like $17. So that's what I'm going to use, because your typical parts store valve spring compressor is not going to work. Most of those are designed for like V8 engines. A lot of times they won't work for these overhead cam style stuff. So look, you can buy one of these vehicle specific. Well, like I said, pretty cheap. If I was doing a lot of these, I'd obviously buy something nicer. But so anyway, just go ahead and just bolts in these locations here. So that's what you're going to do. You got this piece. It's going to go down in here like so, and you got that window. You keep that facing out. Now just going to want to tighten this down. And like I said, this is a cheap one. It's not the best quality, so I just want to kind of make sure that it kind of goes down kind of straight while you're doing it, because it can kind of wander around a little bit. So it's not going to take a whole lot to do this. Okay, so got that there. So I always need to kind of release it a little bit. It's just kind of stuck. So very light taps here. There we go. That's all. So you don't want to be beating on this thing and bend the valve or anything. So as you can see, you don't have to compress it too much. You can just see if I can get a close up. Okay, so in here, it's got these two guides. So you just take a screwdriver and just pull those out. There's going to be 2. Okay, like so. Take those out. All right, so once that's out, go ahead and take the tension off. Okay. Just get the tension off. Remove this piece. I'm going to pull our spring out. So that's a little different. I already done this side. I already did the intake side. That just got single coil on valve springs, but this exhaust side's actually got dual, which is interesting, to say the least. Okay, so once you got that out of the way, we're going to flip our head over. We're going to pull our valve out. Got our head flipped back over. So now, just take, and this something I like to do just because I'm weird. I like to mark the valves. If this is a used head, I like to kind of mark just to make sure I put everything back the way it is, even though it really shouldn't matter. As long as your valves are sealing up, it should be okay. But so now we get this is our seal here, and this is what a new one looks like. Oh. So yeah, there are some better ways to do this, but these will be coming out pretty easy. So I'm just gonna take some pliers. Just be very careful. I'm putting just enough pressure on this just to grab these. I'm just gonna wiggle it back and forth as I pull it, trying not to bend it all up. Not that it matters, but I don't want to put any pressure on our valve guys that are up under this, being that all that's being retained. I just need to just wiggle this back and forth just to get it broke loose. There's probably some people cringing at the method, but it works. It works. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take one of your new ones, and you can just put some oil. I put some oil on the inside, and on the part where the valve rides, but it's got a little bit of assembly lube that I'm going to use just because it's a little less messy. So lube it up, put it right over there. Just gently press it down. Make sure you got it squared up. Press it down till you feel it bottom out and fully seat. Flip back over, put our valve in. Okay, sit it back down. Now we're gonna just reverse it. Okay, same thing. Slide this back in. Now we're just gonna compress it again. Just want to try and make sure that this thing doesn't move around too much. So we're just gonna take them and drop them down like so. And again, it's off just a little bit. Ah, there we go. Okay, it just dropped in. Just had to wiggle it around a little. Okay, and you can see these are tapered. If I can get it in frame, these are tapered, so they're only going one way. The way that works is they're with them being tapered, that once you release the tension and it comes up, it's not allow it to won't allow it to the retainer to come past that spot because there's a notch in this valve. You can watch as you loosen it. You can see it fell right back in place. I can get a good view of it here. Yeah. So anyway, so that's ready to go on. So we talk about next is our head studs. So open them up. Hard to kind of look at them, but so they just got instructions, and this tells you what to torque them down to. So 3 steps to 80 foot-pounds. So I'll probably do like 40, 60, and then 80 on the final torque. Some moly lube. I'm going to put this on both sides of your washer and your nut. We got our washers, our nuts, and our studs. So one end of the stud, it's going to be the stud, the end facing up. It's going to have this Allen key, so you can tighten them down, but it's just hand tight. They also recommend chasing the threads, clean all the threads out. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get these put in. So they recommend putting these in quote unquote hand tight. To me, that means just snug them up. It might mean something different to you. Some people say bottom them out and then loosen them half a turn. I never do that. People say all kind of stuff, but I always just snug them up. Okay, like to look, make sure they're all even, which they are. So, ready to throw a head gasket on. I'm using the Phil Pro Permatorque MLS. I've always had great luck with Phil Pro. Personally, I think they're just as good. In some cases, I think they are better than some OEM. I'm not saying on this particular application, but I always had really good luck with Phil Pro. So make sure we line everything up right. Got some of these oval ports, so that'll kind of tell you where you need to be at. Okay, everything lined up, everything matches. Almost forgot we got to put our dowels in. Dowels. I took them out and I had it machined. I knew I was missing something because I was like, man, that gasket shouldn't be moving around like that. But good thing I remembered or thought about it. Centered on those dowel pins. There we go. Okay, make sure it's okay. Next is going to be our washers. One per stud, obviously. Also, just like any other washer, smooth the edge up. You're going to want to coat both sides of this with moly lube. It's going to ensure you get an accurate torque reading. I like to be pretty generous with it. Okay, that's one. Obviously, next up is our nuts. Shouldn't have to add any more of this since I've already kind of done the top sides of the washers, but I'm being extra careful. Okay, so just hand time, so it don't matter, but this is going to be the sequence. You always start in the, well, check your manufacturer recommendations, but it's always going to be in the middle. Then you work your way out as far as when you're torquing them. That way you get a consistent spread torque without warping the head or anything. Okay, it's got them all hand tightened, so I'm gonna come back. Like I said, our spec's gonna be 80. We're gonna creep up on it. Let's do we're gonna do 40, then we'll do 60, then we'll do 80. Okay, so that's the process on torquing them. Like I said, this was 40 pounds. I'm gonna go up to 60. I'm gonna do the whole thing again. 60. I'm gonna go to 80. And we'll be done. I'm not gonna bore you with that because it's the same thing. Okay, so we went through our 3-step torque process. We ended up final torque with 80 pounds. Also, just note for final torque, I used a 1/2-inch drive torque wrench with no extension. The first couple rounds was at low torque, so I used them with a 3/8, and I used an extension because it just wasn't enough room to get a 3/8 drive down in there. I would not use that for final torque. Number one, you want to use a 1/2-inch for that torque range, and you don't want to use an extension because you have to figure out there's a formula as far as figuring out how much you'd have to raise the torque spec to get your desired torque with using an extension due to the deflection. So the next thing I'm gonna do is, now I got the head squared away, I'm gonna flip it over, I'm gonna pull the pan off so we can start working on get this oil pump chain switched. Okay, now I need to clean up all this silicone off the flange here, so I turn it. That way I can, I'll clean this edge. It'll fall down versus falling in. Once I get to the other side, I'll rotate it the other way. That way you don't want to get everything in here, but inside the engine. So, but yeah, there's quite a bit of silicone because somebody took this pan off before to drill and weld that oil return bung on for the previous turbo system that was on this. So yeah, go ahead and get this cleaned up. Okay, so I got everything for my oil pump. Brand new OEM chain. And OEM guides. So, should be pretty simple. We'll pull this off, pretty much unbolt everything and just bolt everything back up. Being that the Type S, the A2 does not have balance shafts, you don't have to worry about timing this stuff. Now, engines with balance shafts, the balance shafts have to be timed to the crank, as well as the head timed to the crank. So, complicates things a little bit. Still not a, it's not a hard job either way, but like I said, this one has no balance shaft, so this should be a pretty easy one. Just unbolt and bolt back on. Could not find didn't have a right size socket to fit these, so I had to, didn't have anything this small. Had to do it with a Allen key. But I'll need to get one. I'll have to pick one up so that way I can torque these to spec. Can't really torque them with the Allen key, but okay. Got that out of the way. Let's pull our chain. There's not enough slack to get this chain off. I could probably mess with it and get it off, but I don't want to risk damaging our gears. So we're gonna have to just pull this oil pump off. Okay. Tilt that. Okay. That gave us the slack we needed. Okay. Okay. Not bad, not bad. So I have to make sure we torque that to spec as well. So now we'll put our tensioner on. This is an interesting style tensioner. I never really seen, you know, one like this. I'm used to the styles for, you know, like the standard timing chain or timing belt style, like a hydraulic tensioner or spring tensioner, like the old B&D series. Okay, now I can only assume that the next step is going to be to pull this piece out. And there you go. Now let's give it a few revolutions. Yeah, looks nice and smooth. Okay, so that's pretty much it. So before I move on to anything else, I'm going to go ahead and look up the specs and torque every single one of these fasteners down. Okay, so I got all the bolts torqued to spec. These are gonna, from the information I found, I could not find my service manual, but 8.7 on these 10mm head bolts and 16 on the 12mm head bolts. So we got those torqued down. All right, so the next thing is to we'll flip it over. I'm gonna have to assemble the valve train on the top end, and then we can get the rest of our timing components in. Now we're going to rotate our crank until our marks line up. And just like before, we've got our screwdriver, and it's just as a visual reference as well. When you're rotating this, just be careful. If you feel anything binding, please stop. So our dot on our crank gear right here is lining up with our arrow. We also got that visual representation, our screwdriver peak, so our TDC on number 1 cylinder. Our cams are relatively in the right area. One cool thing about Hondas is you'll have a dot on your cam gears and on your crank gear. Your chain will have, find them, 3 dots as well, 3 dart links. Obviously 2 will be close together, those will go on your cam. You'll have 1 near the bottom for your crank. On the back of the cams, there's some holes And once you get the cam to where you set it for TDC, there's a hole in the cam and there's a hole in the head here. So you can take, I think Honda makes some pins that slide in, but I don't have those, so I just took some appropriate size Allen keys and put them in there. So doing that's gonna help hold everything together while you're getting your time marks lined up. Okay, so it's not perfect, but it's a little bit of slats in our those Allen keys we got. Anyway, so go ahead and get everything else kind of marked up. Again, just hand tight. We've got all our chain, all our links, but dogs. We got all our links lined up with the corresponding the dart links lined up with our marks on our gears. So now I'm going to come back and snug up all these bolts. Gonna pull our pins back here. Okay, next step is to pull our pin and see what happens. Okay. See our hydraulic tensioner pushed out. So now, we'll just rotate the engine. A couple cycles. Cam gears are still lined up like they're supposed to. Yeah, everything looks good.